So I actually had, this stemmed from a client question. Actually, a client said, do a video on the best advice you gave this year. Sum it up. And I was like, well, that's kind of tough because I think some of the best advice I gave might only be unique to that person.
Right.
Someone that was in some sort of debt situation or whatever it is, it probably wouldn't apply. So you can't really take the Dave Ramsey approach and say, oh, the best advice I gave was this, and here's why.
Right.
But I thought, what a good video. Do you know of any really good advice that you gave this year that you thought, oh, that's it?
I've got a few, but I mean, some of it's kind of general because in planning and in advice, I mean, you do have just general things. And like you say, the one-offs of specific things. I mean, some of the advice that I just love to give is when you're working with somebody, you're talking through their overall financial picture, and then they say, I didn't think of that. And you're like, yeah, there we go. I earned my keep, because I mean, that's ultimately, you want to make sure you're providing value to somebody. Yeah, you have the money management side, but also I like the idea of like thinking through other things. And so,
you ever think like when somebody calls and goes, I was thinking about doing the mega backdoor Roth and this and that, and and you're like, yeah. And the answer is yeah. You ever think like, I'm going to try to tear this apart some way. I got to find something else. I got to add some other value here because they're just asking for permission. You don't need my permission.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I like to like, hey, you're right on track. You're right on track. But I mean, I was sitting here. I made a couple notes on something of just some things I was thinking throughout the year. But the idea of like, so many people bring you something that, the CPA said to do this. And it's like, nothing against CPAs. They're oftentimes just looking at today's tax.
Yep.
But then us trying to think forward a bit on, the Medicare IRMAA tax, that's just a sticking point. And so many people get frustrated with it.
Yep.
And it's okay to have a little extra that you're paying. But if you're not careful, especially a single filer and that's done really well and saved really well, man, you can really get hit on those things.
Yep. And if you're not ahead of schedule there's a lot of times it's like, okay, you can't go back. It is what it is. Like you can't change it. So planning ahead on that's pretty key. I remember one thing in particular that I think would apply to everybody, and I don't know how to word it yet, but I was trying to think of this last night. That it was a younger client, and they're starting to make more money in a really rapid way, and it's consistent. It's not like sales where it might go up and down and stuff, but to get them to think about their debt on a balance sheet level instead of an individual level, because they kept harping on some of the little debts that they had that had higher interest rates, and I'm like, well, yeah, but if we look at your whole life on like a balance sheet level, your net debt cost is 1% or whatever it was. And that was a light bulb moment for them. And so I was trying to use that with some other people and go, if you're okay with having debt, some people just don't want it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're okay with having debt, let's not look at the individual line item thing and say, well, that's a 6.6% car loan or whatever. What's the actual net debt cost? And I think when you start to really peel that back, people go, okay, so all my dollars are working and doing, some cost and some are gaining. But at the end of the day, if I look at a balance sheet like a company does, just like a public company, they don't care about necessarily one item of debt because they have lots of different streams of it. It's the net total cost. So that one, I didn't know. Like, I'd love to do something where it's like we're building that out. Nest Egg does that too. They have their balance sheet there. But think of it like that in 2024. And it's really kind of, especially interesting because now there's a big spread between what debt costs and what it used to cost, what your savings earns and what it used to earn. So there's a game there. I just don't know how we generalize that enough and go step one, step two.
Right.
I'll figure it out.
To be creative, sometimes it's challenging to like, you can't do hey, everybody, here's what you do. It's not the same for everybody.
Well, and that's why I think from Dave Ramsey, I think I don't bash him as a service or whatever because, oh man, that's so hard. Like to get to the masses, like what do you tell the masses to do to boil that down? Yeah. The man put the time in,
Yeah. I got one that I've mentioned before, and it's not something we do here. So please don't ask us to do it directly. Okay. But so we lost a client because of it though, but in a good way because it helped them. And so I don't know of many advisors that'll tell you that, but the idea was that this guy invested in real estate. That was his whole thing. and he flips houses. He has tons of rental properties. And I'm like, okay, you've got all of this going on all of the time. But what if we could basically say, let's take this bucket of money you've saved up and literally allow it to grow and compound tax-free? Because on average, he was telling me he makes between 15 and 20% a house, and he can flip multiple a year and really doesn't even need the income at this point in life.
Wow.
He's at a great point. So I'm like, so let's take your SEP IRA. He had stopped contributing to the SEP because he had incorporated some other business partners in some of his stuff. And so he said, okay, let's take your SEP, or I told him, let's take your SEP, let's convert it to Roth. You're going to have a tax liability on this year, but then you're going to put it in a self-directed IRA, and then you can flip houses there. And he's doing that, and he's loving it. And it's not for everybody, and it's not something that we do, but man, that was one that, like, yeah, again, I mean, I gave up, some money there, but it's like, at what point do we say, hey, we need to make money all the time? I don't think that's the final draw. I think
he would have figured it out too.
Well, hopefully, but I mean, I just think that it's like, hey, free him to go do his thing.
Sounds like that guy should make a course.
Yeah, dude, I've told him many times to make courses, and he's like, I can't stand those course people. He was like, because they always tell you, and they never be like, it's just everybody throwing money at stuff.
Yeah.
And so,
but if he's actually doing it, I guess that's the thing. Convincing people.
He's doing it. But he got in at the right time. 2008. After 2008, I mean, he started buying houses, I think, in 2009, 2010, and literally he took massive risk to get there. He would leverage a house, borrow against the house, go buy another house, borrow against the house, buy another house, and then started flipping the houses, and just insane.
Is it Tarek El Moussa?
No.
Was it him?
No. Who's that?
That guy from this show where it was him and his wife, and then they would flip houses, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And
I know you're talking.
His wife left him, or something happened there. I forget what it was. But he still does it.
Okay.
I don't know. I used to watch the show. Well, so my last one here that I thought about was really more on me. I really got stronger this year telling clients no, like in a good way. This is an emotional game, right? So investing is emotional, and the market had basically gone straight up, but there were 2 pullbacks. And those pullbacks, if you watch TV, make it seem like this is it, the top is in. And, one thing to remember here is we don't sell anything. We don't charge by the hour. We don't sell financial plans. Like, the only way our company grows is if your account grows. And so if you're asking to do something emotional or silly or whatever, then it is kind of on me to say, no, you're doing this wrong, and here's why. And so it's not selfish, but it's like, it's in my best interest for you to consistently make the right decision and guide you, because then our company grows. If you paid us by the hour, and you called and said, I'd like to, sell something or whatever, okay, we would just sell it.
Right.
But finding that balance where someone wants to do something or chase, there was a lot of AI chasing this year, things like that. Crypto came back. Yeah. So finding the nice way of saying, you're not going to do that. And having the client realize that I'm not saying this because I just had a bad day or something. I'm saying it because I know it affects me too.
Yeah.
There's a balance there. And I think this year I really found the balance where you get to know somebody. Like, if I'm going to tell you no, like, we better have some relationship, right? Because you're not just going to tell somebody no, they would just leave. So that one's a key one. Before you make that emotional decision, which I think you're going to have many chances in 2025 or 4 to make these emotional decisions, think about the impact on the growth of your account or your family, or in this case, as well.
Yeah. No. My last one kind of goes along with that, because it's really when you advise somebody, not backing down on the advice, and that can be kind of challenging.
Yeah.
As an advisor, our goal is to give you the best advice, and as a fiduciary, we give you the best advice. But ultimately, also, as a business, like, you always have this lingering thing of like, well, what if they get mad at me and they want to leave, and like, then I lose the business? But there's a guy that, he was looking to retire, and he said to me, he's like, I want to retire. And we looked at the plan, and I'm like, it's just not working. Like, it's not working. And then so I started like brainstorming and really trying to think through things on my own to try to figure out, is there any opportunity for him? And I found that, like, okay, so we've got this income fund that we can put him in, that would allow him to generate a certain amount of income over a period of time. It's not an annuity or anything like that. We don't sell that, but it's just an income fund. So that would buy him time to get to Social Security. Then once he gets to Social Security age and it keeps his income, he's in an interesting position because he wants to keep his income ultra low he doesn't have a ton of money, but he has a good amount. He's retiring early. So he wants to keep his income low though, for the sake of having healthcare that doesn't cost.
There's that balance we were talking about earlier.
And so it was this whole mix of things. And so I created the strategy to say, okay, we could get this income coming in during this time, get you to Social Security. Then so you get to Social Security, we're going to have to offset for inflation as well. So we have some dollars that are growing long-term. It was this complex thing. And I explained it to him and he's like, I don't know if I get it. And for him, he didn't quite grasp it. And so it took a lot. Like it was an easy one for me to just be like, well, I just think you just need to, keep working, do this, do that. But no, I wasn't like, just giving up on this thing. I'm like, no, this is the best. It was actually like, it was the light bulb moment where it's rare as an advisor that you have, a plan that you build that's like so complex and confusing that it's like, most people wouldn't think of this. We like to think of things outside the box. And it's not saying that, every day that this happens, but it's when it happens, it's like, this is what we work for.
And then you're excited about it. You're like, you have to do this, do it.
I was excited because I knew this was the best strategy. 100%, this was it. And I was sold on that, knowing it's the best strategy, but he just didn't understand it enough. And I'm like, oh no, it's all going to fall apart. And so it took a lot of educating him. And so now though, we've got the whole plan ready to go in place. And I'm super excited because he's heading out, next year, and we've already got everything ready to go. And so he's ready to go. He sees it. He sees the opportunity. We've talked through it, and it's like, cool, man. That's what we do this job for.
That actually, something similar happened to my friend's parents. They were retired without telling me, and they really couldn't. And so it was one of those where I'm like, all right, I'm going to come over, like, let's go through this because we got to do something unique and different here. And it took a while for them to go like, all right, we get enough of it where we trust that there's something here. Then it was a follow-up. And okay, now we trust the first part of it. I'm like, okay, I'm already done. I'm like, this is the best thing that we can do. But I get that.
Yeah. So what happened to the man who shoplifted a calendar on New Year's Eve?
Oh, sounds like a riddle, actually.
He got 12 months.
Okay. All right. I like your frosty balls joke.
It was not it was supposed to be just like throwing snowballs.
I love that.